Thanks so much for joining us today on a brief tutorial on the PracticePerfect software system. When you first log into the software, the system will take you to a list of your active patients. Patients will be listed alphabetically down the left, and you can search by last name, first name, file number, or home phone number. Hitting the Enter button on the keyboard or your search icon will tell the system to search for that patient. Patients are listed three different ways: active, discharged, or all clients. The all client listing will indicate your active patients in a dark font. At the top of the screen, we have drop-down options. Most of customizing the software falls under the settings or housekeeping drop-down lists. The system also contains a function bar running left and right across the top of the screen. These little pictures or icons are the functions that you can perform based on where you are in the system. As you move around within the system, the function bar will always remain in its location, but the functions will change for you. Housekeeping, clinical, contains a list of your diagnostic codes. These are your standard ICD-9 coding. You can modify, edit, or delete anything in this list at any time. The green plus sign on your function bar will help you add a code to the list. Simply type out the code, move over, type out the description, and your code is saved into the current list. Should you wish to remove a specific code or specific codes, you simply flag the items by clicking in the left-hand column, or use your function bar to help you flag. Once you flag the items, then you can simply delete the items that are flagged from the listing. The entire system works the same way. Back under the clinical section, we also contain a list of goals for the therapists. The goals are used to enter the clinical documentation, and for more information you can watch our videos on documentation training. The contact section of housekeeping contains your office information. When you double-click or green plus sign to add your office information into the system, name, address, phone number, zip code is all entered. Logo can be entered on the bottom left-hand side of the screen by clicking on the green plus sign and finding your picture or logo file on your computer. The other section on the right-hand side of the screen contains your tax ID, which would be box 25 on a HCFA red claim form, and your your group facility NPI number, which would be indicated on box 32 and 33A on a HCFA red claim form. Your location is open Sunday through Saturday by indicating a tick box in the appropriate days of the week, and the start and end of the last appointment time are indicated as such. You will only be able to book patients into your scheduler within these two times. The time label is the time intervals that you'll see on the scheduler. So for now, we've asked the clinic to show us every 15-minute intervals, so the scheduler will show us 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, and so on. The housekeeping contact section also contains a list of your providers or therapists. Double-click on an existing therapist or hit the green plus sign to add a new provider to the system. We do require the first name, last name, credentials, and the individual NPI number. Certain states do require the taxonomy code, and the default service location or billing location is indicated with the drop-down list. You can also upload a signature file for each of your therapists, just like your logo file, by clicking the green plus sign and finding that picture or JPEG file on your computer. Certain states do require the taxonomy code. If your state is one of them that do require, just simply enter your taxonomy code here. Housekeeping contacts also contains a division listing. You can define these different divisions by clicking the green plus sign and each patient in the system would fall into one of these divisions. Divisions are like groups or categories that your patients would fall into, and they're very handy for reporting purposes. Housekeeping also takes us to our financial section. The financial section contains a list of your payment adjustment methods. This will be the pick list that you have to choose from whenever you try to make a payment in the system. You can add, edit, modify, and delete codes from here at any time. Housekeeping financial modifiers contain the list of modifiers that you would want listed so that you could add these to the appropriate CPT codes when necessary. Financial section also contains the location codes. For billing purposes, you normally have to indicate whether the service was performed in home, in office, or in hospital, and you can add, edit, or modify at any time. Financial section also contains the ledger accounts. You may want to defer this to an accountant for setup. Ledger accounts normally indicate which revenue streams your treatment codes fall into. This clinic has chosen to separate medical records from massage versus treatment. Financial section contains a list of your fee codes. CPT codes are listed in here. To double click and set the code up, you're looking for the code and the matching description. If you're entering your own customized code, just simply choose an internal code name and an external description that your patients will see. Choose the best appropriate match from the drop-down list and the best appropriate match from the fee type drop-down list. Your default duration, visit, or unit counts need to be indicated on the left-hand side. You typically always want the default visit to be 1 and the default unit to be 1 if your code has something to do with treating your patient and you charge that code per 1 unit. The default duration is optional. You can tell the system whether this is a timed code, which would force the therapist to enter a specific time connected to their treatment code. The background tab contains the list of payer rates. You can indicate which insurance companies, and then the allowable rates are listed on the right-hand side. Very important to tick this box that is marked for predictive use only if you do not want to bill these rates out on the invoice. If you want to continue to bill out the higher amount, the usual or customary rate, you need to indicate with this tick box that you're simply tracking these payer rates for better predictive purposes. The housekeeping financial section also contains a CCI edit code listing. Should you have any specific payers that follow the CCI edit listing, which is a combination of CPT codes, in this case, these two codes are allowed in combination, but the system would remind you that you need to include a 59 modifier. You can add your own CCI edits to the list or remove any that are not applicable for your state. The scheduler section is where we add our therapists or providers into the daily scheduler. Scheduled providers will allow us to green plus sign and add a new therapist to the scheduler or double click an existing therapist. Minimum duration is asking how long are most of the appointments that this therapist books in general, and how many people or items will the system allow this therapist to book at the same time. Start and end times are indicated for the days of the week they need to be available in the scheduler. A special shifts tab is indicated in the background to add a specific date or specific date range for a therapist and their available hours for that date range. This special shift would then override the typical setup for those dates. The operations drop-down list is where you'll be moving or navigating yourself around the system. The clients, remember, will bring you to a list of your active, all, or discharge patients. Payers would be a list of insurance company or payers that you need to send invoices or submissions to. If you double-click an existing payer or green plus to add a new payer into the system, the name of the insurance company and identifier number are required if you're billing through a clearinghouse. Each clearinghouse would have a list of all the payers they deal with, and each payer would have an identifier number that needs to be listed here. Address mailing information listed on the bottom left-hand side. And for billing purposes, we need the kind of insurance company by using a selection from this drop-down list. And we need to select the primary and secondary invoice styles. The primary is indicating if this is somebody's primary insurer, how do you need to submit the charges? Which electronic format do you need to submit? Your choices are usually EDI 837 5010, an actual HCFA claim red form, or a HCFA claim red form but electronically submitted. For EDI 5010 submissions, you will need to select which clearinghouse you're working with. There are very specific settings for both HCFA, print form, and electronic submission HCFA, and EDI settings. Each payer has a Data Preferences tab and a Billing Preferences tab. Occasionally, certain payers will want certain things in certain places on your submission. We use these two tabs when those situations arise. You can always contact our support department for specific help. Your operations list also contains a list of physicians. You can add in this section with the green plus sign, or you can add them through your patient's profile of information. Double-click on an existing physician, and please note that if this is a referring physician, you will always need the matching NPI number. Moving on to the Scheduler section within the Operations tab. The scheduler, if you have multiple locations, remember that you'll have a drop-down list to choose which location and which scheduler you are viewing. You can also choose a specific therapist name from the drop-down list, which will just focus on that therapist scheduler at a time, or you can choose the By Provider view. The By Provider view will show you a list of all therapists available on a certain day. To move around the different dates, you can use the drop-down calendar. You can use an arrow pointing left or right to move you one day forwards or backwards at a time, or the arrows with the lines at the end will move you 1 week forwards or backwards at a time. The system does have a panic button. The little red circle will always return you to today's date. So if you do get lost, you can always hit the little red circle. There's 3 typical appointments you're always booking in the scheduler. Blocked out time for lunches, meetings, time that you typically are not available for a patient, an existing patient, and then a brand new patient. To book a blocked out time in the scheduler, simply go to the date and time, hit the block icon on the function bar, type out a description, indicate the length of time you need to book the appointment for, and if you had special colors for certain types of appointments, you certainly could change your color. The Recurrence tab allows you to tell the system how often that appointment needs to recur. If you don't choose the Recurrence tab, we assume you're just booking the one appointment. Hit the OK button when you're all done. To book an existing patient, again, go to your date and time. You have 2 options. You can double-click on your date and time, or you can hit the green plus sign on the function bar. You can start typing the name of your patients, or you choose their name from the drop-down list. For a brand new patient or new eval, someone that is not in your system currently, the new patient or drop-down list at the top of the screen will allow you to enter new patient information into the system. This is basic information: name, address, phone number, a brief description as to why the patient is coming to see you. Each patient would fall into a division and each patient may or may not have a color that matches that division. OK when you're done, and then to book the appointment is just like booking an existing patient. Green plus sign or double click on your time, and you may have a color that indicates that they're a new eval. The scheduler has colors to visually show you different types of appointments or different types of patients. And if you also look closely, each patient has a symbol on the top right-hand side of the appointment. The symbols to the left may change per patient, but the top right-hand symbol is always the same for every patient, and that's called the status of the appointment. Everyone starts with a pending status, and we change that status as the appointment occurs or changes. If the patient's name is indicated as a regular looking font, straight up and down, that would indicate the patient has future appointments scheduled. If you see the patient, just like we see our test patient Louise here, their name is in italics. The system is telling us with the italics that they have no future appointments past this point. This is their last scheduled appointment. To find a list of all the patient appointments, simply click on their name in the scheduler, and we use the Find Appointments icon on our function bar. Confirm the patient you're looking for, and simply choose the Pending button on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, and the system will list all future or pending appointments for this patient. You can print and preview this list. You can export the list to PDF and email it to your patient, or of course print it for them. You can change your status and date range, and by hitting the search button, the system will find whatever you're looking for. If you have a label maker, the system can also print onto a Dymo label a list of all the patient's upcoming appointments. On the bottom of the screen, we have some shortcut keys. F4 is a shortcut for appointment details. If you do forget that, you can always right-click and go to appointment detail that way. And this will give you a pop-out on your screen that indicates several pieces of information, such as who booked the appointment, who last changed the status, and in the middle it tells you the next appointment date. Next, we're going to look at the patient profile, where we store all the information pertaining to the file, such as name, address, phone number, insurance, policy, claim information. From the scheduler, if you're on the patient's name, hit the Enter button on your keyboard, and that will bring you into the patient's profile of information. Every profile has 6 main tabs of information, plus some subtabs. If you don't prefer to use this from the scheduler, when you click on the word Clients, you can simply double-click on your client's name to get to the same screen. First tab is your basic client information, name, address, phone number. As you're entering phone numbers, please remember as you enter the numbers, we will do the formatting for you. If you do collect a patient's email information, the system can then remind your patients of upcoming appointments through the scheduler. Family physician information is entered on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. You can simply select the physician from your drop-down list. If they're not in the drop-down list, you can hit the green plus sign to add a new physician to the listing. Emergency contact information is entered on the bottom right. The Demographics tab contains the gender and the birth date of your patient. Almost everything else is not required for billing purposes. Remember that the more you enter into the system, the better reporting you'll be able to get out. If you do attach a picture of your patient, if you look to the bottom left-hand side of your screen, you'll notice that the most important information in terms of phone number, picture, and specific dates are following the patient around on the bottom left. Payment information tab stores the credit card on file should the patient want to give you a card to store on file. And the Guardian tab would indicate the guardian information pertaining to this specific patient. The Contacts tab is just another place to record any other phone numbers or contacts related to the file. The Incident tab allows us to indicate why we are currently treating the patient. We never have more than one master file for the patient, but over the years, as they keep returning back to us for treatment, we may indicate a new claim every year that they come back to see us, and we call that an incident. The description of that incident or claim is up to you. The primary therapist on file is usually the therapist in charge of the file. Typically, it would not be a therapist that's not allowed to bill under their name. Cause of injury is really only required if it is auto or work related. You don't need to select the other tab if it's not one of the first two. Should you want the system to automatically charge the patient for a usual fee code, and a usual fee code is defined as a code that you typically charge the patient the same every single time they come in for treatment. A copay is a perfect example of that. In this case, I've told the system it's okay to automatically charge this patient a copay of $20 each time they show. The incident physician information is the referring information for the physician. This would be box 17 and 17B on a HCFA Red claim form. If you do select a physician from your drop-down list, ensure they have an NPI number or your claims will be rejected. Referral source is trying to track where the patient really came from. In this case, I've indicated they actually found us on their yellow pages, even though they have a referring physician. Every patient's incident should fall into one division, and that division may or may not have a matching color that needs to appear in the scheduler. This tells the system now that every time I book an appointment for this patient, they should appear automatically as the yellow color. If you have multiple service locations or billing locations, please indicate the appropriate billing and service office. On a HCFA Red claim form, the billing office would be equivalent to box 33, and the service location would be equivalent to box 32. The subtabs of information are next. The statistics information will track the injury date, which is normally required for automobile or work-related injuries. As a clinician, they can track the next eval due date, and that next eval due date is also following the patient around on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. The diagnosis information that we're treating the patient for is stored in the Statistics tab. It's not necessarily required to be entered at this time, but if you do enter it anywhere else in the system, it will be stored here against the patient's file. The billing rules is what tells the system the rules in terms of billing this patient. Where are we sending the invoice to? In this case, I've indicated that Medicaid of Georgia is the payer on file. They have a maximum of 12 visits they've authorized us for, and the patient has a copay of $20. It's very important to tick the box that says Show Only next to the copay. Actions to be taken once we reach this maximum coverage, you can choose from your drop-down list. Any limitations such as the total number of visits, the system will keep track of that information at the top of the screen for you. That number will count down to 0. Policy and claim information. For any insurance company the patient has, they will probably have policy group ID or claim number. Please note the box numbers are the box numbers on a HCFA Red form if that better helps describe the field to you. Adjuster information is bottom left, and policyholder information is top right. If the policyholder is other than the patient, you will most likely need the gender, the birth date, and the relationship of the policyholder. All of this information recorded on the patient profile is what determines what messages show up at the top of the screen for the patient. In the scheduler, those messages will follow the patient around to better help you understand how billing occurs. So for our yellow patient, we've indicated they have a copay. Medicaid is going to cover this client for 12 visits, and we're attaching them to a usual fee code of copay $20. Our green patient has been set up as if they were a self-paying client. There's no indicator at the top of the screen for any connection to an insurance company. If I do hit the Enter button on their file to go into their profile and go to their Billing Rules tab, there is no connection to an insurance company. My blue patient on the scheduler, Billing Rules tab, indicates that there's no copay or responsibility from the patient. There's a primary of Medicaid of Georgia and a secondary of ICBC. On top of the colors that appear visually in the scheduler, we now have the little symbols that are starting to appear on the patient appointments. Our blue appointment simply has one icon so far. Our green appointment, you'll notice, has the money bag icon, as does the yellow appointment. Any patient where we've indicated in the billing rules that the patient is somewhat responsible for all or part of the appointment today would show a money bag. And the money bag typically indicates that you need to ask the patient for money today. So let's go through and add some charges for some of these patients. Our blue appointment, we would indicate that the patient arrived for their appointment today. The hand symbol has popped up right away on the appointment, and that's because we have this patient connected to a copay $20. So the system has automatically charged the patient that $20. If we were to do that manually on our green appointment, we would hit the hand symbol at the top of the screen, choose our fee item that we wish to charge the patient for, confirm that the information is correct, and then we would add it to the patient's file. We would continue to keep choosing codes and adding them to the patient's file until we're complete. When it's complete, we hit the OK button. And that's basically how the hand symbol appears on the patient's appointment. The hand symbol should indicate that we've added the charges for the patient that day. If you look up at the top of the screen, the patient now has a balance outstanding of $80. If the patient pays me today, I would record their payment with the payment symbol. Confirm the date, the amount, and who with how the patient is paying. I would produce an invoice and a receipt that contains all the information a patient would need to make a submission. I would print this information if the patient needed a copy of this. For training purposes, we can just hit post only. If you look closely, the money bag is now full of money. The money bag becomes full of money when we record a payment for the patient. So in this case, I would indicate the patient as complete. For this patient, they're also connected to a usual fee code of copay. So as soon as I mark the patient as arrived for the day, the system has charged them that $20 copay. To take their money again is the payment symbol, confirm how, give them a receipt, and the receipt should indicate that they're paying me for the copay today. Later, I would need to come along and enter the CPT codes that the patient was treated for. Use your CPT code, indicate the number of units, confirm that the charges are going to the correct insurance company, and confirm the diagnostic codes. If you do require a modifier that you need to add, you can simply add it here before adding this to the patient's file. If you have another CPT code, go back up, do the same thing all over again, and add it to the patient's file. OK when you're done. Mark your patient as complete when everything you need to do on file is complete. Should you need to edit or delete an entry, you can go to the Book of Hands for that patient. The Book of Hands is called the Activities by Service. This will list all of the hands that have ever been entered for that particular patient. If, in this case, our 97001 needed to be 2 units, we can flag that charge, hit the Edit pencil, and simply change whatever needs to be changed. If we want to flag and trash the services entered, you can simply flag whichever items you wish to trash, and then hit the trash icon to remove those items from the listing. To re-enter them, Your function bar is following you around. It's got the same symbols as it did on the scheduler. You can add new treatment from there. For balancing at the end of the day, there are a few reports that you may want to run in the system. Under the Report section, Operations and Daily Reconciliation, choose your date range, choose your location, and hit Preview, and the system will itemize the transactions that have occurred throughout the day. All of the hands that have been entered will be listed at the top of the screen. The scheduler will show the provider and attendance summary. Payment summary will indicate all the different payments that have been received or recorded throughout the day, and this should match what you have on hand. Billings reconciliation will have a list of patients that had a balance that did not pay even though they attended today. And it will have a section indicating that we may be missing some charges for patients if it sees patients in the scheduler, such as our Louise patient, who has not been marked as canceled or no-showed, but still doesn't have a hand symbol to indicate that we've charged them. If you need more detailed reporting on the hands as to what was entered, the Reports, Operations, and Revenue Report section will help determine that for you. Indicate your date range, show the billing information or injury information if you're a biller, and when you preview, this will indicate all of the charges, all of the units, all of the CPT codes that were entered throughout the day so that you can help identify errors to fix those before billing. For payment details, the financial section contains the payment journal report, and that indicates or itemizes all of the payments received today, including any payments that may have been deleted. For setting up your email notifications, under the Settings tab, Customize Email Appointment Notification requires an email address information, headers and footers for what messages you want be indicated to the patient, and the account settings. Once you've indicated all those pieces of information, individually, you can right-click on an appointment and send out an email notification, or to send a group of notifications, the Actions drop-down list, Email Appointment Notification, will send a group of people reminders. So in this case, I can tell the system anyone with an appointment on July 31st at the main location, I can email them all at the same time. Reminders can also be entered into the system. Reminders are simply pop-ups that appear on your screen at certain dates and times. Green plus sign to add a new reminder. Simply choose the date, the time, and the username that you wish the reminder to appear for. Type in your message and say OK to add that reminder to the system. To customize your Operations tab, you can add links to the bottom by going to the Settings, Other Settings drop-down, and the Integration tab. Simply type out the display name and then the website or a file that you wish to open instead. OK to store that information, and your system will add those links to the bottom of your Operations tab. Please note that setup is per username and password. Thanks so much for joining us for the initial view of the PracticePerfect software. I hope this has been helpful for you. Remember that under the Help drop-down list, you can always access the User's Guide. Under the About section is always the toll-free support number and email address for the support department as well, should you have any questions or concerns. Thanks so much. Thanks for choosing PracticePerfect, and have yourself a great day.